What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a very special episode of our podcast, Mass Media Hysteria. We've been away for a while, but we wanted to come together and do this very special episode. So today we're going to be talking, even though we're very, very late on it, we're going to be talking full spoilers of Matt Reeves' The Batman. And just because we can, they just released that scene with Barry Keoghan, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, as the Joker, a scene that was cut from the film. So we're going to talk about that towards the end. Very excited about that. So just quickly, I want to introduce my esteemed guests. To my left, if you're looking at it, is Chris.
How's it going, everybody?
And down below, as always, is Andris.
Howdy.
Down below, as always, is Andris.
Hey, man, I'm Rusty. I'm Rusty. What do you want from me?
No.
So now it should be one of the reasons why we really wanted to do this should be mentioned is the way the three of us met. And we've told this on the podcast before, but we've all known each other for many, many moons. We all met on an internet movie database forum for The Dark Knight before that movie even came out. So that was 2008. So what is that, like 12 years?
Oh, fuck,
like
yeah. Oh, dude, it's like 14 years at this point. Holy shit.
So yeah, we've all been talking off and on for many years. We're all Batman fans, so we just kind of went, we gotta get together and talk about this thing, even though we're super late to it. So that's what we're gonna do. So as per usual, we want to encourage you to drop a like on the video if you enjoy the video. Of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and jump into the comments. Tell us, did you like the Batman? Did you hate it? Seems to be, I know a lot of people really liked it, but there are definitely a bunch of people who did not care for it. And then, of course, Barry Keoghan, the Joker. What do you guys think? So first, we're going to sort of talk about our overall thoughts of the movie without spoiling anything. I've got a pretty good idea of how Chris feels about the movie. I have no idea how Andris feels about this film. He's been very cagey about it, so that'll be interesting. Then we'll go into like full spoilers. We're not going to hit every beat of the film because, frankly, it's been a couple of weeks and I don't remember every beat of the film.
Yeah. And there's a lot of beats in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's 3 hours. So
and it's 3 hours. There's a lot going on in this film. But we're going to go through that. And then again, at the end, we'll jump into the Joker scene. So Chris, I'm going to throw it to you first. I know you were very much looking forward to this film.
Absolutely.
Do you want to give me your just sort of overall thoughts?
Yeah, I was beyond stoked for this movie. Ever since kind of, hearing about Reeves was attached to it, being a big fan of his films from Cloverfield to Let Me In and the 2 Planet of the Apes films.
And the pallbearer.
Oh, yeah, you can't, this classic pallbearer with David Schwimmer.
The David Schwimmer vehicle, yeah.
And what a trajectory of a career, man.
Right.
But yeah, I was beyond excited. And this really did live up to all my expectations. And in some ways, exceeded them. I really love this film. I think it's terrific. It's wonderfully made on a technical level. The storytelling, which we'll get into, is extremely tight. And I think that was one of my biggest surprises and takeaways, is that not only is this 3 hours long, but there's a lot going on. There's several characters, several different subplots kind of intertwined. And I was pleasantly surprised by how it all kind of fit together in a cohesive way. But also, I never really felt lost. And admittedly, maybe that's because I've been into Batman for ages, so I wasn't lost when they were just like name dropping, Salvatore Maroni, or you know what I mean? They were just name dropping people without even showing them, and I'm like, oh, I know who that is. Like, you know what I mean? You understood the connection. But I was really, I loved this. I thought this was, in many ways, a version of Batman that I've always wanted to see.
Okay. Yeah, I'm mostly there with you. I really enjoyed this film. I wouldn't say that I loved it. I had a few problems with it, but I thought it looked great, although there were parts that were just like so dark where I was sitting in the theater going like, I don't know what I'm looking at. But I believe the cinematographer's name was Greg Fraser. Wonderful job. There were so many moments that just looked like a frozen splash page out of a comic book.
Yeah.
Just a beautiful looking film. I thought the cast was overall really fantastic. It was very dark. Like you said, there's a lot going on, and I do feel like the movie handled all of the subplots, wove them together pretty well. Certain stories sort of took a little bit of a backseat, but they were sort of B plot, C plot, so that's fine. And I mean, I had some moments where I got, absolute chills. There were moments where I got a little bit choked up. One of my favorite things about this film was I'm blanking out his name, Michael Giacchino's score.
Oh yeah.
I know a lot of us, it had been teased in some of the videos they'd put out, so we knew this sort of the basic Batman leitmotif, but this sort of just back and forth, those two notes. But man, it's used really well in this film. Although, Chris, you pointed this out, and I don't think I would have noticed this had you not said it, but you had said after you saw it that you felt that the Batman theme itself, the dun 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 dun, that they used that a little bit much in the movie. That they sort of came back to it a lot. And I think you're right on that a little bit. But overall, I thought the score was fabulous. Just another great Batman score to go on the list, because there are some really good ones out there.
I mean, it's people are gonna get mad. I for the life of me, I could not tell you what the Hans Zimmer Batman v Superman score is, the Batman score for that, or even the one in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember not thinking that Junkie XL's score was bad when watching Zack Snyder's Justice League, but for the life of me, I'm like, I can't place what Batman's theme is. But this one, oh, you can? Okay. Yeah. All right. Maybe I'm crazy, but I thought that Michael Giacchino's was like instantly sort of memorable. It was like
it's definitely more iconic. I would agree.
Kind of like it's kind of earwormy in that way.
Yeah. We'll get to that when we get into spoilers. I thought it was a really good film. I did find it to be a little bit long. There was a moment where I looked at the time and I was like, okay, I think we're sort of kind of going to be wrapping up here. And I was like, oh no, there's an hour to go. So there's a lot going on. Like I said, there are a lot of concurrent plots. It's a movie that, if you're going to take everything out of it, you got to pay attention. It's not a movie for passive viewing.
Yeah.
You don't want to be looking at your phone, particularly if you're in the theater. But if you're at home, you don't want to be like cooking and have the movie on in the background, because you're gonna miss a lot. So I guess we'll throw it to Andris for his overall thoughts, and then I guess we'll jump into the cast. But Andris, again, I have no idea what you thought about this movie, so why don't you tell us?
I've kept a tight lid on my thoughts.
You have.
Because of this, I was like, no, I'm going to hold these hot takes so they explode into this video. And here they are. I loved it. It was great.
Good. Cool.
I liked what they did with it, and they went in different directions in ways that I've always wanted to see. We'll get into it. I will say I liked how this was smaller. As in, these Batman films are always really big. The world's at stake, or, and I mean, it does happen in the third act, but I like how this just focused on him fighting crime and being a crime fighter and trying to find the Riddler. It was something that I just feel like they've never really done that in any of the previous films. There was always some overarching something big happening. And I liked the intimacy of this film.
Yeah, it definitely had sort of a street level kind of threat. Like it wasn't Ra's al Ghul trying to take over the world or whatever. It was the serial killers on the streets.
And even at the end, which I won't say if because we'll keep it for spoilers, but even the kind of bigger thing that happens at the end, it wasn't like we're gonna try and nuke the whole city or everyone's gonna die. It was more like it's something that is feasible in a way. Yeah, like you because we've seen similar situations happening, not the same cause, but like we've seen cities go through this in real life, and it felt plausible. So I completely agree with that, Andris. Like even when it went big, it still felt like not over the top, kind of, in a way.
Yeah, there were no giant space lasers.
Yeah. There's no blue light shooting into the sky.
And that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, so let's talk about the cast a little bit here. Before we get into it, I'm going to let's go this way. I mean, there's a long history of fanboys losing their minds when anybody gets cast as anyone in a Batman movie. If we're going back far enough, of course, there was no internet at the time, but when Michael Keaton was cast as Batman for the Tim Burton movies, people freaked out because he was short and he was a comedian, and then he was Batman and he was fucking awesome, and everybody learned. Of course,
or so we thought.
So we thought. When Heath Ledger was cast, everyone's like, "Oh, the gay cowboy."
Yeah, the guy from A Knight's Tale and 10 Things I Hate About You. He can't be the Joker.
Yeah.
We know how that worked out. Ben Affleck. I'll admit it too. When Ben Affleck was cast, I was just like, "Oh no."
The guy from Mallrats.
That was an interesting choice, but I had a feeling. I was like, I've seen Ben Affleck be good, and honestly, I think he's probably one of the best parts, if not the best part, of Batman v Superman.
I agree.
I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah,
he was awesome. And of course, Jared Leto got cast as the Joker, and
well,
we were right about that one.
Yeah,
the internet got one.
I don't hate him as much as everybody else, but still.
Yeah, no, I think I said before that everyone is like, oh, Jared Leto gave like an awful performance, but I still stand by saying that I think the vast majority of his performance ended up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah,
like he's barely in that movie, and I think that maybe with better material, more time, he could have done something. But yeah,
and a better design, because oh my god,
yeah, it's kind of a weird look for him.
He definitely, like, for me, he looked better in Zack Snyder's Justice League with like the longer hair, and
he looked a little more Joker-like for sure.
He didn't have the grills and the tattoos, and what you're saying I think is totally true. Like, if you were to ask me to do a Heath Ledger Joker impression, I couldn't do it. I don't have sorry, not Heath Ledger, Jared Leto Joker impression. I couldn't do it because there's so little of his character in Suicide Squad that I don't, I could do, like, if you gave me a line from the movie, I could probably like try and do it. But if there's so little there, and every line that he delivers is kind of in a different voice. And so, I don't have much of a read on that characterization, but, so then of course this movie was coming out, and everybody freaked out because Edward the Sparkling Vampire was going to be Batman. And I learned from my Affleck thing, and I'd seen Robert Pattinson in a couple things, and I think he's a really good actor. So I was like, you know what? I'm down. I trust Matt Reeves. I really liked Robert Pattinson in this film. He's not the standout for me, but I did like him a lot. I liked that it's a very quiet performance. There's very little Bruce Wayne in this movie. He's Batman for most of it. He doesn't talk a lot, but he does a lot with, first off, his physicality. Batman's always got to have a good physicality, but he conveys so much with just like his mannerisms, his body movements, the way he carries himself. But what really impressed me, and how he inflects his voice, but what really impressed me is what he does with his eyes throughout the film. And these are eyes that are covered in black makeup and behind a cowl. And they're still so expressive. And I honestly don't know how they did that. Do you guys want to weigh in on your thoughts on Pattinson here?
Sure.
Yeah, Andres, go first.
Because of Ledger, I never judged another actor before seeing the performance again. He was great. I liked his voice being toned down too, because because of Bale's performance, there was a while where it was just and this, he was just quiet but thinking. It's like you could tell he was just processing everything at all times. It was a great performance. That's all I got.
Right on. When he was cast, I was really thrilled, actually, because I love Robert Pattinson. I think he's terrific. I've Twilight was not my demographic. It wasn't my thing. But I kind of followed his career post that, and he took a lot of really interesting roles, like really kind of the polar opposite of kind of Twilight. And in the year I think that he was cast, 2019, he had some incredible performances. The best, in my opinion, was from The Lighthouse.
Oh yeah.
With Willem Dafoe. Andres, I don't know if you've seen it, but that's a crazy good movie, and he is terrific in it.
Yeah.
So I was stoked, and yeah, I really liked Robert Pattinson in this movie. I think that when it comes to this role, there's always the duality of Bruce Wayne and Batman. And some would say that in a lot of instances, or Christian Bale, for instance, had almost 3 performances where it's Bruce Wayne in real life, Bruce Wayne, the persona to the public, and Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And here, it didn't really have that. It felt like he was Batman inside the cowl or not.
Yeah.
And I will say it's not really a complaint, but it's one of these things where I liked it for this movie that his Bruce Wayne was just completely obsessed, more so than we've seen any other Bruce Wayne, where he did not separate from being inside the suit and not. He was just this tormented kind of soul. And I enjoyed seeing that. But I will say, as a fan of comics and a fan of animated series and other iterations of Batman, I do like seeing that duality. So I hope to see maybe in future installments, him kind of there being somewhat of a difference, that he starts to develop I don't want to say personality because that makes it sound like dismissive, but he develops a life outside of Batman. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. I think he will. We're not going to spoil it right now, obviously, but with the events that happen, he's going to realize the necessity of developing a facade.
Yeah, I brought it up just because I've heard other people say that as a complaint, and it's not quite a complaint for me because I see it and I like it, because I don't think we've seen this iteration, and this is true to certain comics where Bruce Wayne is just Batman. Like Batman is the true persona, and whether he's in the suit or not, he's just this dark, this dark knight. And yeah, again, I think he was great. Like you said, Court, just seeing what he does with his eyes, because he not only we don't see Bruce Wayne that much, but Batman himself doesn't even really talk that much. But we just kind of see his performance, his calculating thoughts through his eyes. I'm thinking of in the beginning, and I don't think we're in spoiler territory yet, so I won't say it, but he kind of looks in on a kid, a young boy who just had something traumatic happen, and doesn't say a word, but so much is conveyed just through the look that he's giving him. So really
that was one of my favorite moments of the entire movie.
Oh yeah. And okay, no spoilers, but when fucking Something in the Way kicked in, oh my god, that's mamma mia.
I gotta say, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
I gotta say, I like that song. I'm a fan of that song. I'm wearing a Nirvana hat. I didn't like the inclusion of that song in this movie.
Boo!
I didn't like it. It just
controversial.
I feel like, and they used it twice. I feel like it's a sort of a double-edged sword, because I feel like if they used a couple more popular songs, it would have fit better in that. Like, it really stood out because it's the only one and everything else is score. But then if you go if you cross that line a little bit too much with pop music, then you have Suicide Squad, and it's a music video. But I don't know, that Nirvana song, I understand, like, lyrically, tonally, it fits, but it just, it really took me out of the moment. And I loved that moment,
Andres.
The other thing though is that inclusion, it gave we're gonna say the phrase now, the Snyder fanboys, because they're a factor in our discussion. It gave the Snyder fanboys ammunition to be like, look, emo Batman is listening to Nirvana. It's like
and
in probably inarguably the most depressing Nirvana song too.
It's certainly out there. I just want to point out, I'm at the point now, I've been so conditioned that if I'm scrolling through Facebook and I come across an ad for like Screen Rant or something talking about anything Snyder, even before I see it written above the article, my brain automatically says, Andris commented. And then I scroll down to see what he's written. And it's fucking hilarious.
That's funny.
It's true. I do tend to.
You can't help yourself.
I can't help myself, and especially it's a vicious cycle because I start looking at the comments, and there's always the hashtag restore the Snyderverse, and I'm like
it's
guys,
done.
I'm sorry, but this film was another nail in the coffin for the Snyderverse.
They're not gonna do it again. I mean,
no, they won't.
Anyway. No, that's interesting. Court, I will say, is because I have some complaints. I do agree that I think the reprieve of the song at the end didn't quite work for me. Yeah. But I thought that the placement of it in the beginning, I thought was great. Like, I mean, especially just even just like the instrumental opening when he's kind of looking at that kid, I was like, oh fuck yeah. But then like it was really well timed with it. Like when the chorus kicked in and it was just a hard cut to kind of him on the motorbike kind of zipping through Gotham, I was like, this is dope. I could see what you mean though, in the sense that this is literally it's literally the only pop song in it, or non instrumental piece in it. But even though I like it, I will say this, that I agree in that it's also the only one that tethers it in a way to our real world. It's like, okay, so these events, according to this, took place in a world where Nirvana was a band. It's not like its own kind of thing. So that's a little weird, but I still liked it.
Well, I also think it's, because this movie takes place like now-ish. Everyone's got like smartphones and whatever.
Yeah.
And, I mean, how old is Pattinson's Batman supposed to be in this? Like early 30s, I would say tops, right?
Yeah.
So like, how the fuck old was he when that song came out? Like 2?
Well,
not that you can't listen to music from before you were born, but it just, I don't know, it strikes me a little weird.
I was 0 when that song came out, and I love that album. Nevermind is terrific. So
maybe,
I'll say that.
Maybe his parents met at a Nirvana concert.
There you go.
And so it's like, hey, I remember my dad didn't bathe and he wore plaid. And
okay, so we spent a lot of time on Pattinson, so let's sort of fly through the rest of the cast here. Let's jump into first, I guess, the villains. For me, the standout was Paul Dano as the Riddler. I understand, a buddy of mine thought his performance was really over the top. I get that, particularly, excuse me, towards the end where they have that scene where he's in Arkham and he's sort of yelling and whatever. I really liked that about it. I loved this take on the Riddler. It's a character I've never been super into, but I love that they went full on Zodiac, John Doe.
Oh yeah.
Jigsaw, I thought it was great. I thought it was very chilling. And I really liked Paul Dano in the movie. Do you guys want to quickly give me your thoughts on him?
Sure. Yeah, it was great. What I like about his character, and I'm gonna have to say it again. I feel like this is a bit of a exploration and a discussion on people taking Batman and getting the wrong things out of the character. Snyder fanboys, once again. I feel like it's a bit of something there because, I mean, even towards the end, when Pattinson realizes, the effect of his influence on the world, it just, I really liked seeing that because, these films never really explored the negatives. I mean, Dark Knight did a little bit, but this really brought to the forefront of what happens when you have a vigilante in the city. And that was, it was fascinating.
Dark Knight kind of paid lip service to it, but this actually kind of shows it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the problem, which was fascinating. And yeah, one of the things about the Riddler, which is why he's not that popular of a character, is what do you do with that kind of character? And this approach was brilliant. I loved it. And it's something you've always wanted to see in a Batman film. Batman taking on something or someone doing something like this. This is, It's usually I'm gonna punch bad guys. Here he's like cracking ciphers from the Zodiac killer. It's like tasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked because it felt true to kind of the society that we're in now, where there's a lot of not just negativity, but like really uh potentially violent people just meeting online and having these twisted ideologies. We see it in the real world.
Yeah.
And so it felt very true. It felt like someone like this, if they did exist and kind of tried to have like an online community, I think that you would see these kind of twisted people connect with it. And so it felt very realistic in a scary way. Really, like towards the end, I've mentioned this before. I know that sometimes I've kind of stopped going to opening night premieres for movies because I get a bit of anxiety being in a crowded theater.
Okay.
And so I didn't go opening night, so I went to like a matinee on like a Saturday or whatever. But it was still a crowded theater, and at the end, when it's at the climax, what's eventually happening in a good way, it made me really uncomfortable because
Absolutely.
it felt, again, it wasn't there's a bomb that's going to blow up the city. It wasn't we're releasing fear toxin or whatever. It felt so realistic to the point where I'm checking the exits,
Oh, yeah.
And I think that was really good. But I think that also kind of speaks to the character of the Riddler, in the sense that he's not in it that much on screen, I should say.
Right.
The Riddler is not on screen that much, but his presence is felt throughout. Like he's kind of like this ghost that sort of haunts every scene.
I've got another point actually to jump on that. Not only is it like his presence is there, but he isn't. But even when he's on screen, he doesn't really have that many memorable lines necessarily.
Right.
His actions speak louder than his words.
Yeah.
Which is great because that's very realistic. These twisted kind of people, they might not necessarily be these, mustache twirling, monologue spewing individuals.
Yeah. He doesn't have like something super clever to say, you know what I mean? Like Shakespearean kind of monologue. And Paul Dano is great in it. Like he's creepy from his first scene. Like when he's just screaming while attacking someone, it's like this feels real and it feels creepy. And his real kind of moment to shine is this interrogation scene that happens. And again, it's not really spoilers. If you've seen the trailer, you understand that it's going to happen. But you have this interrogation scene with Batman, and that's when, I don't want to say choose the scenery, but he really kind of steals the show in that scene. And yeah, he's great. A terrific casting. Paul Dano's great, so I thought that from the beginning I knew he was going to deliver, and he really did.
I gotta say, like, even just a little thing where when he's in the diner and he gets arrested, we've seen a bit of that in the trailer. When they actually grab him, he's got this like creepy smile on his face that I found very unnerving. And as well, there's a moment where it's not quite in the third act. We're sort of getting in that direction. But like one of the cops mentions, he's got over like 500 social media followers. And we're sitting in the theater going like, really? We're talking about it. But then they pay it off. And he's doing that live stream. And like, if you're reading the comments that are coming up, like I've seen that shit online, the way that that people can like weaponize people online. And I thought, okay, that's actually fucking brilliant.
Oh yeah.
I liked that it was only like 500 followers.
Yeah. Because that was a lot more realistic.
Yeah. Because they weren't trying to be like, oh my God, he has this massive influence. It really is like, he's getting the seediest of the underbelly of like these demented people that just kind of connect with it. So I like that it felt small scale like that.
Not to mention, by making him have a smaller following, it made it a little more plausible, because if he were more well established, they'd be following him, like the government would be like watching him. Right. So it made it a little more plausible, because they're like, yeah, otherwise this wouldn't have
Well, and also it was a following that just spread it up in the last like 2 or 3 days, right? It's not something he'd cultivated over years. Let's move on to Colin Farrell as the Penguin. That's something everyone's talking about. I purposely wore my baby Batman killing the Penguin
yeah.
shirt. I'm going to go first. I will say that, first off, the makeup is phenomenal. Most of the time when you see heavy prosthetic makeup and it's an actor or performer that you know very well, you can usually either hear it in the voice or see it in the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Colin Farrell as the Penguin, I got nothing. At no point did I get Colin Farrell from that at all. What about you guys?
Couldn't find him.
Not at all. I love Colin Farrell. Like I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. He's in one of my favorite films of all time, In Bruges, and I never would have guessed. Honestly, like my wife, I remember telling her that it was Colin Farrell like ages ago, and I guess she just kind of forgot because after we saw the movie, she watched the whole movie, and afterwards we were talking about it, and I mentioned Colin Farrell, and she was like, "Who? Colin Farrell was in this?" And I was like, "Yeah." It's like, "Who was he?" It's like the Penguin, and she's like, she didn't believe me. She thought I was just fucking with her. Yeah, I mean, makeup was terrific, but makeup only goes so far. In his performance, it's unrecognizable. Like his mannerisms, his voice, oh my God. And I can't wait to see more of him. I thought he was great. And again, he's not in this movie a ton, but I like that they are building up this rogues gallery it makes, because that really feels true to the Batman comics, and that not every villain in every comic is the headliner. There's a lot of times when there's just like a subplot or even a scene of Batman interacting with the Penguin or Two-Face or the Mad Hatter, and they're not necessarily the main villain.
Well, and I got to say too, going into this movie, because I went in, probably a week after it came out, and everyone was saying Colin Farrell steals the show and Penguin's amazing. And as you said, he's not in the movie a lot. I got to say, like, I really liked him in the role. I thought he was a really good Penguin, but like, I don't know, people were saying he was like the standout. I was like, he was good. I really liked him, but like, he didn't do that much. I was entertained every second he was on screen.
I think it was just people being confused that they couldn't recognize that it was Colin Farrell. That's why they're like, "Oh, he was the standout," because I didn't recognize him as Colin Farrell. And you're like, "That's not what a standout is, though."
Right?
Yeah, the character itself wasn't in it enough, and it didn't do enough to the plot to really be the standout, in my opinion. But I agree that whenever he was on screen, he controlled the scene. Like there's a scene where him, Gordon, and Batman are kind of talking, and it's like one of the few kind of comical scenes, and it's not even comical, but there's levity to it. And so I agree that he steals the scenes that he's in, but I agree with you, Court, that he's not the standout just because he very much is a lower kind of supporting character.
Yeah. Now, if they're still planning on doing the Penguin series, I'm into it. Bring it on.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle, Catwoman. Again, I don't think they call her Catwoman at any point in this movie, much like Dark Knight Rises.
Kind of a bummer. Just make her Catwoman, guys. Come on. You have a Batman. We can buy a Catwoman. It seems like they're afraid to say Catwoman.
Yeah.
Although, like, most people don't say Batman in this movie either. He's just Vengeance, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I think it does get said though.
Yeah.
I really liked her. I'm still going Michelle Pfeiffer, Anne Hathaway, Zoe Kravitz, but of course I've only seen this movie once. Maybe that'll change if I see it a couple more times. But I really liked her. I liked her costume. I liked her hair. I mean, visually, she was straight out of Frank Miller's Year One, which a lot of this movie is clearly based on. I thought her chemistry with Pattinson was wonderful. I thought she nailed the physicality of it. Chris, let me start with you. What were your thoughts on Zoe?
I thought she was great. I really did. I think I would actually place her above Anne Hathaway in the sense that Hathaway, I really like Anne Hathaway as an actress and that performance, but there's a little bit of a, I don't know how to say it. there's an archness to her, to Anne Hathaway's character, that she plays it a little bit like femme fatale, like specifically kind of going for like classic Hollywood femme fatale in some deliveries. But Zoe Kravitz felt like, out of the three that you just mentioned, she felt the most like a real person. Like, Michelle Pfeiffer is terrific and iconic, but the whole movie is a little bit kind of over the top and stuff. And so is her performance. Yeah. So Zoe Kravitz, Selena Kyle felt really grounded. I really liked that character. She felt them like the most empathetic and sympathetic of it, but she also felt capable. Like when she didn't feel overpowered, because she still is kind of like a very petite person. So she wasn't like clearing out an entire room of people without breaking a sweat, but she was able to hold her own physically when fighting people. And she was taking some hits too. And I really like the kind of scrappiness of it. There's a scene towards the end where she's fighting basically just two people, and she's clearly got skills. She knows how to handle herself. But again, it didn't feel like she was a superhero. And I really enjoyed that. And like you said, Court, the chemistry between her and Pattinson was great. Really kind of sexy whenever they're on screen. Like they really kind of had the fireworks kind of ignite. And that relationship, in a way, especially by the end of it, felt like kind of the central relationship of the film. I thought she was great. Although again, I want her to be Catwoman, man. Just make her Catwoman. Give her a cowl with little cat ears. That's all I want.
Andris?
I've got not much to add. She was adequate in the role and got enough of what we needed to see her as Catwoman. Mm-hmm. Except without the ears.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, her balaclava had like the little bumps, but
little cat ears.
Yeah. Let's just really quickly. I really liked Andy Serkis as Alfred. Again, barely in the movie.
Yeah.
I think his version of Alfred was heavily trying to remember. I think it's called Batman Earth 1. Might be called Batman Earth 2, but I think it's Earth 1. I have it over here. And that's an Alfred who, he's the guy who taught Batman to fight. Mm-hmm. In that comic, he's actually missing a leg, but he's got like this grizzled beard. He's got a scar on his eye. He's a little bit more hardcore of an Alfred. I really think they based Andy Serkis's version on him. And of course, Serkis and Matt Reeves are boys from the Apes movies.
They're ape boys.
Yeah.
Ape boys.
I really liked him, and I really liked I'm blanking on his name, but he was almost attacked by robot testicles.
What? I'm sorry, you lost me there. I don't know what you're talking about.
Barton Fink.
John Turturro.
John Turturro, thank you.
You could have just said the Jesus.
I could have said the Jesus.
That's what I said to my girlfriend in the theater. I was like, look, it's the Jesus.
It's so unfortunate, but now when I think of John Turturro, I think of him with giant robot testicles, and that's how much I was scarred by that moment of that goddamn movie.
Transformers. Fucking shit. Okay. I was like, okay, it took me a second.
It's a bad film.
Never saw
Michael
it.
Bay. Oh, good for you.
Bad Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. Bad.
Alfred, for me, did not necessarily work in this film. The problem is with all the previous Alfreds we have ever gotten, there was always something to take away from them. I feel like they didn't know what they wanted to do with this Alfred, so he just I was lost by him. I was like, okay. I mean, he wasn't bad. They didn't give him, for me, anything that just really was something to, latch onto and be like, that's Alfred, or that's this Alfred.
Okay. And what about John Turturro? How'd you feel about him?
He was just another of the ensemble of crime. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a flashy performance. It's a very quiet little mob boss. Chris, what about you?
I really liked, sorry, I'm just pulling something up. I really liked Andy Serkis's performance, but the character of Alfred, like you said, Andres, didn't really get much to do in this. And there's a point where it should have been kind of emotional, something that happens to him. And I just didn't quite feel it, or I only felt it because of my understanding of the relationship between Bruce and Alfred from previous Batman iterations, and less about the connection between Bruce and this particular Alfred. And again, I don't think that's anything against Andy Serkis's performance. This movie was just so full of characters and so full of stories that I felt like he didn't get that much to do, which was a bummer. Also, I obviously this was clearly intentional, but Bruce was a fucking dick to Alfred in this entire movie. Dude, I legit, because I usually am very quiet when I see movies in theaters, but there's a scene where Alfred is like, okay, we're going to this funeral, we're going to an event. Here, have these cufflinks. You don't have any cufflinks, have them. And he looks at him and it says Wayne. And Bruce is like, are you a Wayne, Alfred? And I was like, get fucked, dude. What an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, no, even again, we're gonna get into spoilers in a minute, but we'll just say he goes to visit Alfred later in the movie. And we get some truths. And until the end of the scene, he's being a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And even then, I didn't think that the resolution of that was nearly as much. I'm like, fucking hug him, you bitch.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
sociopath.
John Turturro. I love John Turturro. I thought he was great. I think we've only had one other Carmine Falcone in the series, right? It's played by, what's his name? From The Dark Knight. I can't think of his name.
Tom Wilkinson.
No, wasn't that Maroni?
No,
that was Eric Roberts.
Oh, okay. I mixed him up. Okay.
He's the fall guy.
Yeah.
Organization.
That's good. I thought John Turturro was great. I love John Turturro. Again, I wish that there was a little bit more to him, but he delivered it so cool. Like every scene, he was just so cool. And I really liked how kind of duplicitous he was. Like, because he kept telling people different things. He was telling Bruce different things. He was telling Selena Kyle different things. That it really did kind of like, what's the truth here? What is his motivations? What does he really want? And I like that he was just kind of nonplussed by like everything that was happening. Like even when shit was hitting the fan for him, he was just kind of like, fuck it, whatever. Didn't take off his sunglasses or anything. So I thought he was really good. He wasn't in it too much, but I thought the scenes he was in, he was quite good.
Yeah, okay. And I was about to move on, and then I remembered, fuck, Jeffrey Wright. We got to talk about Jeffrey Wright.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I've been a fan of Jeffrey Wright for a long time. As soon as it was announced that he was going to be the next Gordon, I was like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. That's perfect. He's got, even if there have been a lot of different incarnations or iterations of Gordon, of course, over the years, but one of my favorite versions, and it transcends a lot of different stories, we see it a lot in Nolan's movies, is Gordon is this kind of put upon, one of the only clean cops in the city. He's the guy with the entire weight of Gotham on his shoulders, and he's just struggling to get by. And, Jeffrey Wright, I think of him as Bernard on Westworld. And I'm like, yeah, there it is, like right there. I loved him as Gordon. I loved his relationship with Batman, because there's like, it's not just like a business relationship. There's like a buddy comedy dynamic there a little bit.
Oh yeah, they're on a first name basis. He calls him Bat.
He calls him man. He calls him man a couple times.
Oh man.
And I loved that. I don't know why, but that just like, it's like, no guns in here, man, or whatever. Or, no, I use a gun because I'm a cop, man. I don't know why I love that. Excuse me. But I did. What did you guys think of Jeffrey Wright?
Andres, you go.
I had only ever seen him in Westworld, and I was actually a little worried. Although I wasn't too worried, because I know people can act like more than one. When you're an actor, you can do more than one character.
Ideally.
I didn't like his character in Westworld, but I was like, all right, we'll see what happened. Enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. He was exactly the kind of Commissioner Gordon. Well, he's not commissioner yet at this time. Spoilers?
Is he like lieutenant? I don't know what rank he is.
He's something.
He was like, I don't know the hierarchy of cop stuff, but he was essentially a beat cop, I think.
Yeah.
Like, he was a street officer,
But
maybe sergeant or something.
He was the perfect Gordon for this kind of Batman.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Jeffrey Wright is great. I've loved him in a lot of work. And yeah, his Gordon was perfect. I for this iteration, like you said, you know, like the gold standard going into this, because Gordon was really not given his due in the Adam West series. He wasn't given his due in the 4 kind of Tim Burton / Schumacher films. It was really Nolan that kind of brought about the true relationship from the comics between Gordon and Batman, which is a very close-knit relationship. Like they're a team. And I felt that even a little bit more so, of like them, just these two guys, like taking on the corruption in the city. I think I felt it even a little bit more than Bale and Gary Oldman's character.
I agree. It's because we got to see more of the crime investigation in this one.
For sure. And even a little bit more so than in Batman Begins. It felt like it was just these two guys against everything. Yeah, I love the relationship that they had. It was very measured. I also liked, in addition to him calling him man, there was little moments of like him finding out like, oh, this guy from my team is corrupted. This guy from my unit is corrupted. And he just feels so like weathered. He feels kind of like this beaten down guy that's like, what? Really?
He needs
him
a
too?
vacation.
No, I really felt for him. So yeah, Jeffrey Wright was great. Real quick, you guys keep talking, move on. I'm gonna be right back.
All right.
You will be right back, folks.
I'll be right back, guys.
All right. Well, I guess it's time we jump into the plot here.
Okay.
So, you know, again, we're not going to hit every beat because we'd be here for 3 hours. But so one thing I want to say off the top, one of my favorite things that this movie did, and hopefully maybe we'll stay on this topic for a minute because I would like to get Chris's thoughts too.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't even notice he had the Batmobile, and it's an awesome Batmobile.
Yeah.
One thing that this movie did, and I'd heard about this before I went in, and I really didn't like the idea. I'd heard that Batman narrates the film, and I don't know. I guess I didn't think about it in the right context. And he doesn't do the whole movie. It's kind of at the beginning and then kind of at the end. But I just thought, oh, that's going to come off as cheesy. But it's not him so much narrating the movie. It's him reading the journals that he keeps, his sort of crime journals. And the way those entries were written were right out of a comic book where we read Batman's sort of inner monologue, you know, where it's in Batman Year One. It's in almost any Batman comic where, you know, it'll be, you know, he's not saying it out loud. He's thinking, but like Tuesday, no. And it was like, they brought that to screen beautifully. I thought that worked wonderfully. What did you think about that?
Yes. They've tried to do it in the past and it hasn't worked. Off the top of my head, I was thinking about Dark Knight Rises, where Catwoman leaves and he's like, oh, so that's what that's like. And yeah, it was a little worrying, but I really feel like they did it in a good way in this film and it was very effective.
Right. And that sort of leads me into, again, one of my favorite moments in the movie where, you know, we're hearing his internal monologue and he's talking about how fear is a tool and they think he lives in the shadows, but he is the shadows and blah, blah, blah. And you see this one goon sort of looking around for somebody to beat up or whatever he's going to do. And is lightning going and he looks into this alleyway. The lightning flashes. He looks into this alleyway and it's just a dark alleyway. And he just sees the darkness and he runs away. And what I loved about that was Batman was not in that alleyway.
Yes.
But it just so well conveyed that what if he was? He could have been in that alleyway and then you're fucked.
Oh yeah. He's very authoritative, I guess you could say, in this film. And he's very imposing. You're just like, oh crap, he's not gonna handcuff me. he's gonna give me a black eye and put me in the
No.
hospital.
No.
But yeah, it was very effective.
It was such an interesting way of, without any dialogue, of just showing the influence of fear that he's got over the criminals of the city. He's not even there and they're scared,
Yeah, absolutely.
I loved it. Chris?
That's what I love about I mean, seeing the idea of Batman, what Batman means to these kind of ground level criminals. He is fear, he is darkness, and it wasn't just like one dark alley. They had kind of it was like a few different like crimes going on at once, and most of them Batman wasn't there. They were just looking at the darkness, like you said, and just they were afraid. And he showed up to one of them to kick ass. But that's kind of the feeling of it. If you're a criminal in Gotham at that time, you're really like running. You're taking a risk.
You're looking over your shoulder at all times.
You're looking in the darkness, and I love that because that's so Batman. Just he uses the fear, as a weapon, as a tool.
And it was really cool. That scene we've seen since, or going back to that first DC Fandom trailer, the I'm Vengeance scene. That's the interaction of Batman in this movie. And so they're beating up the other guy. And even before we see him, we hear Batman coming out of the shadows, out of this alley.
The heaviness of those boots.
The boots, yeah, they cranked the bass on that. And it was scary. Like it felt like a moment out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
It was like intimidating.
That's one of the things I was happy about with this film is like they decided to incorporate horror, and it's so effective, just the horror throughout this film without being a slasher movie. There was just this dread and
Yeah, I mean, Batman is supposed to be scary. I mean, again, seeing it from the criminal's perspectives, this is probably one of the better examples of it in film, where he's coming out of the shadows. And if you just for a moment, just put yourself in that position. If you're one of those guys with face paint and you just see this fucker just coming out of the shadows, you'd shit yourself. It's creepy. I thought that was great. So not just like Pattinson's performance, but the utilization of Batman in this movie was spot on for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked how after he beats them all up, and again, I didn't think that the combat in this movie was like stellar. Like it didn't even come close to the Affleck warehouse thing. It didn't need to, but just an observation. But that beatdown scene is great. But after all the goons run away, he goes over to the guy that they were all trying to beat up, and like he doesn't try and help him up. He doesn't do anything. He just kind of looks at him and walks away. Like it was almost like he wasn't there to save the guy. He was there to dole out punishment to the bad guys.
Yeah,
like he's all about extracting vengeance. He's not about helping people, not yet anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they communicated that without any dialogue, without telling us. They just sort of showed us, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The only thing I wanted to piggyback on that point about the fight choreography, I do like that it was just very stripped down and realistic, because this movie really makes you realize how stylized all the previous films tended to be. Even the Nolan films, as grounded as they were, there was a little finesse going on at the same time. Mm-hmm. Whereas this one, you're like, this is reality. This is that those fists are really happening.
Yeah, it didn't have the same kind of stylized choreography as that warehouse fight in Batman v Superman, which is cool to see. I'm a big fan of the Arkham games, and that kind of like combo fighting and stuff is awesome. But I agree with Andris that I liked that it wasn't kind of like it didn't just kind of turn into a martial arts film for a fight scene.
Yeah,
it was just like he was beating the shit out of people. And I think it was even more exemplified a little bit later on in the movie when he's having a fight in the Iceberg Lounge, which, by the way, super stoked that the Iceberg Lounge was a place in this movie. For fans of the comics, I mean, it's much different in the comics, but the Iceberg Lounge has been like the Penguin's kind of his club, his hideout for decades. And I think this is the first time that it gets a name drop in a movie. So
Yeah, I think so.
So that was cool to see. But there's a fight scene that's, you know, somewhat reminiscent to Batman in the club in The Dark Knight, but it goes on for much longer. And he's just beating the shit out of people, and he uses a baseball bat. And again, it's less stylized, but I felt every crunchy punch that he had. So
what's interesting is the fact that, I hate name dropping it again, but I'm gonna go back to the Snyder films.
Oh my God.
People always talk about how violent and all that. For some reason, you feel things with the Batman way more. There's more weight to everything that's happening.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say part of that is the sound design.
Yeah.
Like this whole movie, I felt in my chest, particularly like when the Batmobile that Chris has behind him, when it first revved its engine, my chest was shaking. It was great. But like the beatdowns, you know, like you really feel them. And I think maybe it's also got something to do with the realism of the fighting. Like that shit Batman's doing in BVS. I love it. I think it's fucking awesome because it is right out of the Arkham games, but it's so fluid. It's not like human like in any kind of way, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, he kind of goes into superhero territory in that movie, which is fine. But in this, he does feel kind of grounded, and he feels like a real person. And I know this is kind of jumping around a bit, but you mentioned it. I completely agree about the sound design being excellent throughout. But and this is not a negative, but during the entire Batmobile chase, it was so loud in my theater in a good way. And it was like this cacophony of noise, but it was still like expertly crafted, like the highs and lows of it. But I was
controlled chaos.
Yeah. But I was in the theater, and my entire body was just vibrating throughout. And I wasn't in like, you know, the real DX or whatever those things are, you know, with like the motion control chairs in the theaters. But oh my God, the sound design in this was excellent. I know that this is jumping the gun, but I know that typically Oscars kind of don't really acknowledge movies that come out earlier in the year. But I really think this at the very least deserves an Oscar nomination for sound next year, because it was terrific.
Did they ever? It's funny we bring it up because the Oscars are tonight, but did they ever end up combining sound design and sound mixing? I know they were talking about it. Did they? Okay.
Yeah, now it's just sound. Best of sound.
Okay. Yeah. So, what are some other plot points we want to talk about?
Well, I mean, we can get into the fact. It's not just one plot. I mean, it's like one that goes throughout. But let's just talk about Batman being a detective.
Yes,
like, properly. I mean, we see it throughout, and Batman, you know, is called in the comics the world's greatest detective. So, you know, step aside, Sherlock Holmes. You ain't shit. It's Batman, and my God, is he a detective in this movie? He's not a superhero. He's literally, this is Seven, David Fincher's Seven.
Yes.
But just he happens to wear a Batman costume, and I loved it.
Now it should be said that like he is a detective in this movie. He is maybe not the world's greatest detective in this movie. He fucks up a lot in this movie.
I will say
I liked that though.
So did I.
He's not the world's greatest detective, because the first riddle he gets is what is a lying man? What is it like? What does a lying man do when he's dead?
Something like that.
And instantly I was like, he lies still. And Batman's just like, like he thinks about it, and then he's like, oh, he lies still. I'm like, really? It took you that long, Bruce?
Well, and then there's a thing where it's like the flying mouse, and I was like, you mean like a bat? And they're like, no, it's a stool pigeon. I was like, that's a stretch.
Yeah, like a flying rat. Everyone knows that's like a bat. I don't know.
Yeah, but wait, I mean,
is it a bat?
But that's one thing I did really like about the movie is that both he and Gordon get it wrong.
Yes.
Because they have like L and La backwards because they don't know their Spanish too well.
Yeah.
I thought that was fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. What I really liked going on that is, I like that he gets things wrong. It gave such a humanizing, realistic quality to this Batman that we've never seen before, I don't think, where he doesn't get things in time, things go wrong, things happen, and he has to catch things to save the day. I loved it because these superhero films, a lot of them, after a while, they kind of just go on autopilot where like, oh yeah, he's going to save that person. Because of course he will. And, you know, this one, though, things were happening. Things went wrong.
Yeah.
And it was so refreshing because I feel like it's more so the failures and how a character deals with it that makes them heroic instead of when they save the day.
Sure.
Really, really great point. I completely agree. I was listening to part of a review for this movie with Kevin Smith. He does I think it's Fat Man on Batman, his podcast, and he has a co-host, Mark Bernardin, who is a really intelligent guy. He clearly knows his stuff. He's a writer as well. But his complaints for this movie, it was just like, I kept disagreeing with everything he was saying. And one of his major complaints was what you were saying, Andris, and it's what I really liked. He was like, Batman doesn't really save the day. Batman gets this wrong. He gets punched. He gets all these questions wrong, and he doesn't even capture the Riddler himself. And I'm like, yeah, it's really good. Like, he's a flawed character. Like, he's doing his best. I don't know this. I'm glad that they didn't make Batman the super perfect person that never makes any mistake.
That's one of the biggest missed opportunities of the character, because Batman fandom is so heated and so passionate that when you talk about Batman versus any other character, like Batman versus Superman, I'm talking about in general, not the movie.
Yeah.
People are always overpowered. Well, he just do that. You're like, he's just a man. He's a rich man with gadgets.
Yeah.
No. And it's like, this finally showed. It's like, look, it can be good if he gets it wrong. It can be great if he gets it wrong, because you're getting to see a more realistic take, and it's refreshing.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing I keep seeing, like, you know, people arguing online saying that some people are using the fact that this is only his second year as Batman as an excuse for why he's getting these things wrong, or maybe why he's not perfect at everything. And like, for me, it's not an excuse. It's just a reality. He's only 2 years in. He's not great at these things yet. And that's fine. I want to see him fail sometimes. I don't want to see him perfect, because that's boring. And I mean, I think they're planning this as a trilogy. So, okay, if he's perfect by the end of the trilogy, cool. That's a bit of an arc there.
He's earned it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
That's what people should want from films, is for characters to earn things over time, because you go on the journey with them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm glad that, one, that he was a detective, but two, that he wasn't this perfect person. And also, that's kind of a theme of the film as well, of him coming to terms with other people's mistakes, because a lot of it is him kind of wrestling with the legacy of his father, Thomas Wayne, and even his mother, Martha. So that they aren't these perfect saints in his mind, and he takes it really hard when he kind of finds out, like, I can't believe my dad would do that. And Alfred is kind of like, stop. You know what I mean? Like, there really is that theme of, like, people aren't perfect. People do these things with the best of intentions, and sometimes it just does not work out.
And that's the thing. I mean, we've seen different stories where the Wayans, I said Wayans, like,
as soon as, like, the Marlon Wayne.
We've seen versions where the Wayans are, you know, we even saw it kind of in Joker, where they're not good people. And I was a little bit worried in this movie, because I like the Wayans being good people. I like, you know, that sort of inspires some of the good in Bruce.
Yeah, it's more effective for the tragedy to be that they were good and that they were taken out by crime.
But that's what I liked about this movie, is that, you know, Thomas Wayne was a good guy. He had the best of intentions, but he fucked up because he's a human and he's fallible.
Yeah.
He trusted this guy to, like, fix a problem.
It's nuanced in their approach, because I mean, for example, in that wonderful show that Court refuses to watch, Gotham,
I watched 2 seasons, man. I gave it a shot.
He gave it a shot.
I know you did. There are so many more seasons. Over time, you do see things being discovered, you know, what's really going on with the Waynes. But, you know, it's hard to say that they didn't do it more nuanced because Gotham has no subtlety.
Right.
But in this case, yeah, it's nice that it was like, oh, they did something, but they weren't like mustache twirling villains about it who were like,
Yeah. No, I liked it, and I liked the term that you used, Court. There was like a fallibility to Thomas Wayne, and in what he eventually did, I felt was I don't know if relatable, but understandable. Like it's essentially he mistrusted someone. He put his trust into someone that he shouldn't have, and it kind of came back to bite him. And again, that feels relatable. It feels authentic, and I agree with you. I'm glad that they didn't go full Joaquin Phoenix Joker route, in the sense of like their Thomas in that movie was kind of a piece of shit, and I don't like that. I like them being good people, but also I like seeing that they made mistakes, or that there's a complexity to them.
Plus,
go ahead.
It's nice that his mistake is the catalyst for the events of the film.
Right.
Yeah, true.
But it wasn't because he was evil or that Waynes were evil. It's just because things just went down. They didn't, and the film happened.
Yeah, for sure.
And I like that, we sort of get that story. And so it references the death of the Waynes. And, Chris, we were talking earlier today about that moment between Bruce and the kid, where he just gives him that look. And, like, we all know what happens to the Waynes. We don't need to see it again. Same with Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
We know. And that, those are particularly that look. So much was conveyed in that look. Such a beautiful little moment to say, you remember what happened. This is us referencing it.
Yeah.
We don't need to show you. And then of course they do that again towards the end when Falcone's telling Bruce this whole story. I really like that quite a bit.
Yeah, me too.
What else do we want to cover here?
I mean, just kind of more broad stuff, but I think that Matt Reeves's direction is excellent throughout. One of the big complaints that I have about a lot of studio films, especially a lot of studio superhero movies, sorry, Marvel, is that they often, most of the time, feel like they're made by committee. One of the big things that I look for in a movie is having like a directorial vision. Someone, like, it really feels like this is someone's voice. There's a bit of an authorship to it. And a lot of times, watching, let's say, Black Widow from last year, or even Shang-Chi to an extent, it just felt like this is just kind of made by a studio. It doesn't feel like a singular person had a say in this.
I can finally comment on this. We finally saw all the MCU films. We caught up. So I can put 2 cents in. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It feels like the MCU films, for all that they can do, they are just like, well, this is going to be this film flavored with this. This is going to be this film flavored with this, instead of like unified visions and ideas from directors who want to make films.
Definitely.
And to be fair, this isn't like shitting on Marvel, because like the Justice League theatrical cut, same problem. A lot of DC movies, same problem. But this specific movie, like you said, Chris, definitely felt like there was a lot of authorship. It felt like an auteur film. And I think a lot of that is they gave Matt Reeves, like, how long ago was it when Ben Affleck said, I'm not directing, I'm walking away, and they said Matt Reeves is the guy?
Ages. It was like 2017, 2018.
Something like that, 3-4 years at least. And I think they gave him a solid 2 years just to write the script.
Yeah.
Like, he was just constantly rewriting and touching it up, and they were just like, take your time, man, do what you got to do. And it shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They learned from their mistakes.
Yeah. This one, you can feel it because every scene feels like it has a purpose. Every scene kind of unfolds, and it's not just a bunch of quick cuts with like multiple different camera angles where they figure it out in the editing. It feels very clear, like that, like Matt Reeves intended this shot followed by this shot followed by this shot. This is how the scene is going to progress.
Right.
And I felt that throughout. So I thought his direction was great. We mentioned Michael Giacchino's score, which is excellent. Okay.
Disagree.
Oh, you didn't like the score? Okay.
I did not like the score, actually. I mean, I don't remember a majority of it, but the Batman theme in particular that they kept using. It's the first two notes to the Imperial March. I started humming it, and I was like, that's it. Because the Batman theme is one of the. I'm turning into Christopher Walken. I'm sorry.
The Batman theme.
Wow.
Delete it, Kyle.
I'm
not gonna try. I'm not gonna try.
It's fine.
I was surprised by how little there was to. I mean, I understand it's a more stripped down film, so it's appropriate. But the Batman theme is one of the most iconic parts of a Batman film, and this one I was like, two notes.
Interesting.
It worked in Jaws, don't get me wrong, but for some reason these two notes, I was like, I'm not feeling these two notes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, this score has two notes that go back and forth. Chris was saying he doesn't remember the BVS score. That was one note just repeated over and over.
Oh, was it? I don't even remember.
Yeah, that was dun 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 dun.
Oh yeah. Oh
and
my
I still
God.
like it. I still like it because then it goes into this piano part that's actually really nice. But okay, so Andris didn't like the score. Okay.
I didn't, and I did look into the composer's work afterwards. I was like, is this a new guy? No, he's been around forever.
Yeah.
And he's done some great work. I can't remember the films, but he's done video game scores and stuff. But I don't know, something about this just did not.
He's also the Spider-Man guy.
Oh yeah, that's what tripped me up because I was like, wait, those movies have a great score. What?
I don't know. I really like the score. I mean, even aside from the Batman theme, the Riddler's kind of theme, the music that was playing, I thought that it was really quite good.
I have to revisit the score, is what I'm gonna say. I just the Batman theme. That's the only one that I had in like I can remember, and I just. But we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't have recognized this. That YouTube channel, New Rockstars, they pointed this out. But the movie uses, I think it's Ave Maria a bunch of times involving the Riddler. And apparently, like, the Riddler's theme is basically the Ave Maria melody, but set to like a minor key, reworked into a minor key. So I got to go back and listen to that. But that's cool.
I only kind of noticed it because during the interrogation scene.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I heard he started singing it. And then I heard the score kind of like take it over.
Okay.
And I wasn't like a really conscious, like, I was just more like, I was like, oh, I see what they're doing now.
Well, not just that though. We are in spoilers territory at this point.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that, when you finally find out what happened, why the Riddler's so mad, the video clip that they show, it shows this concert with Ave Maria.
Yeah.
So it's like they were telling you the whole time without you knowing it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I'm like, oh my God, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I like that. I like that incorporation of it and that kind of being his theme. Cinematography we mentioned up top. I mean, it's just stupid gorgeous. It is quite dark in a lot of places.
Hopefully, is this the Legendary Pictures?
I don't know, actually.
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
My suggestion is when this comes out on streaming, don't watch it on HBO because HBO makes their films like HBO Max. Their films are so needlessly dark for some reason. They're turning the darkness on full blast. Yeah. I mean, you guys, if you watch Dune on there, you can't see what's happening.
Yeah, I checked it out. I mean, I didn't watch all of it on HBO Max, but I was like, what the hell? Yeah, so I agree.
So, I mean, hopefully when we get to a home medium format, we'll be able to see more details in this.
I don't know, but I think maybe the saturation was lower. Not the saturation, but the
exposure.
The exposure was pretty bright in my theater because it was dark, but I never felt like I lost any detail, at least in the theater that I saw. Even in the fight in the beginning, which I think might have been some of the darkest, I was still keeping track of who was who and where and stuff.
Oh yeah. My biggest personal issue on the note of seeing it in the theater. Well, I had two, but we're going to talk about. One is a small thing, not really a big thing. They didn't like focus this projector well enough.
No.
It was kind of blurry, and I was like, dude, these tickets were like $30. Oh
fuck.
Can somebody go up there and turn the lens, please? The other thing, how many kids did you have in theaters?
I had a couple, and I was surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Court, did you have any kids in your theater?
No, but there were like, we went on like a Tuesday matinee, so there were like 7 other people in the theater.
Okay.
Dude, no, so I had there's a couple kids, and 2 thoughts I had is, one, obviously this is so not for kids. Thematically, it's so violent, but also I feel like a kid would just be bored through this because this is not an action-packed superhero romp.
This
Again,
is not
it's
an
like
MCU film.
No, it's like a detective film throughout. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of
It's 7 with Batman. That's not for kids.
Yeah, no.
No,
it doesn't even really have that many action set pieces.
No, it doesn't.
There maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah, there's a couple fight scenes. There's one at the end, and there's the Batmobile chase. That's pretty much it.
There was this like 7-year-old kid. He was like sitting right next to us. And when they were showing the trailers beforehand, here comes Sonic 2. And he's like, Sonic! And I'm like, oh God.
Oh no.
There's this like 7-year-old kid next to us. I was like, I actually remember the kid disappeared after a while. I don't know where the kid went. He was probably
he couldn't handle it, man.
He was like, this is too scary. I want to go play on the mobile phone or the iPad. But and then we had like, there were like 4 or 5 kids in front of us. I was like, why are there so many? I get it's a superhero film, but
I mean, it kind of is and it isn't, right? I mean, on paper it is, but that's one thing I liked about this movie. It felt so different from any superhero movie I've seen in like a long time.
Yeah, it was mature, but it wasn't like edgy mature like a Snyder film. It was, hey, this is dark. We're talking about fucking murders.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's heavy shit too. Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead.
That's all I got.
Anything else about the movie in particular you want to talk about? Because I feel like we covered a lot.
Yeah, I'm kind of blanking on anything, but go ahead.
We haven't talked about the Joker yet.
Yeah, how about we talk about we'll talk about the end, because there's one last thing I want to say about the end, including the Joker, and then we'll talk about the deleted scene. Is that cool?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, actually, I did want to bring up the climax.
Go for it.
Because that was one issue I had with the movie. Actually, this ties into what I was just saying. For a movie that felt very different from most superhero movies that I've seen in the last while, I did find the climax, even though it wasn't as big and grand in scale as a Skybeam, it did kind of feel like a generic superhero climax. Like, all the people are here, and when I say it like this, it's going to sound like, well, what the fuck else did you want? The good guys got to save the day. But I don't know. There's really good stuff in the climax, and sort of the Riddler goon saying he's vengeance, and Batman making the connection and going and saving the people. But I don't know. It just kind of.
I know what you're saying, and I agree. It felt like they were like, okay, well, this has to have a big explosive ending.
Yeah.
Big film.
It sort of felt like when they hit the climax, everything that was really unique about the movie got kind of tamped down because they had to do this big climax.
Yeah, with here's this, it's gonna blow this up, and the city's gonna flood, and then people are gonna start shooting, and it was like, it lost me a bit too, but at the same time, at least it was still Batman failing, Batman falling, Batman struggling, Batman trying to save the day. People who were kind of apathetic, like Catwoman, stepping in and helping. It was kind of the gang was getting together to save the day.
Yeah.
And they did. But yeah, no, it did. I do agree. It kind of just, for a minute there, it faltered just a bit, but I have a feeling it was studio meddling, being like, well, you can't do the end of 7 where they're in a field with a box.
Yeah.
It gotta be bigger.
It needs to have a climax.
I will say this. I mean, I like it when, like in a lot of versions of the character, Batman doesn't kill. Not in all. Some people are under the notion that Batman never kills. It's not true. He's killed many times, depending on where you look. But in this movie, he tries not to kill. But I like when stories push him to that limit when he's thinking about it. And I liked that in this situation, because he has that moment, he's like beating a guy. He's going to beat that guy to death until I think Gordon and Catwoman pull him off. But it's not because the guy's taunting him psychologically or whatever. It's like, no, he was almost out for the count. And then he injected himself with some fucking adrenaline.
Yeah.
And now he's just like an adrenaline roid monster, and he's just losing his mind. I thought that was fucking awesome. Yeah. I thought that was awesome.
And it's a great commentary on the Snyder films. How this one is like, look, if you take that, that's not good. You're not supposed to cheer for that.
Right.
Yeah.
This said, look, this is what happens. And it's very humanizing and it's very flawed. And I appreciate that it was flawed, because it was like, you're not supposed to cheer for that. Stop it. Oh my God.
Yeah. There are things about the climax that I didn't like, and things that I really liked about it. I agree that for a movie that 90% of it felt like we said, Seven with Batman in it, the climax was the only thing to me that felt kind of like a superhero movie, in that it was a big action set piece. And that's where it's like, it's a weird mixture of hits and misses, where I'm like, I kind of wish that it didn't have this big action set piece, but at the same time, the conceit of it again also legitimately creeped me out, where it was essentially like they hoarded people into this room, and it was just guys with guns going to shoot them, and that felt really real, and it felt very that creeped me out, where again, it wasn't, we're gonna blow up the stadium or release toxins. It was just lunatics with guns, and that felt really eerie to me, in a realistic way. Also, like, seeing Batman lose control, and also it felt very visceral. Like, Batman got shot a lot. It wasn't just him cleaning up, wiping the floor with these people.
Yeah.
But I will say that thematically, I think that they nailed it, especially at the end, where they asked, like, who is this person or whatever, to the thug he almost killed, and he said he's vengeance. And he's realizing that this thing that Batman was saying, that in the trailer made it seem like it was a big hell yeah moment, he's vengeance. It's not this noble thing that Batman thought it was. That being vengeance and vengeful is not the route. And my favorite moment, I think, honestly, in the movie was seeing how it came full circle. Like, the very first civilian that Batman interacts with in the beginning, after the fight, is that guy that almost got attacked. And he's on the floor and he's cowering and he's like, "Are you going to hurt me?" or something like that. He's terrified of Batman. And then at the end, after he saves people from the wreckage, from the waters, there's a civilian that's being airlifted out, and Batman carried them, and the person is afraid to let go of Batman.
Right.
Yeah.
He's holding, the kid is holding on to Batman as like a security blanket.
Right.
And you could see it in his face, like he's never taken on that sort of role, that inspiring role, and he becomes a symbol of hope at the end. And I thought that was a beautiful kind of full circle moment, that he's no longer going to be vengeance. He's going to be a symbol of, he's still going to be a symbol of fear for his enemies, but he's also going to be a symbol of hope for the people of Gotham.
Yeah. And that was kind of the evolution of the character, at least the arc for this movie, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just refreshing, because it's like, you can do a violent Batman, but you have to understand the essence of the character, and you have to do something with it where it goes somewhere. And this does that in such a beautiful way.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, of course, so the film wraps up. We see Batman and Catwoman kind of saying their goodbyes. She wants him to come with her, but she realizes, Gotham's his true mistress. And I'll say, as they were riding away and they got to the fork in the road, and you're like, okay, they're going to go their opposite directions, I got a little choked up. Didn't think I was going to, but it did happen. But then we get this final scene of Batman talking to, or sorry, not Batman, of the Riddler once again in Arkham, talking to who we imagine is the Joker. We don't see the Joker. We just hear him. I didn't like that scene. I thought it was a bad ending. I thought it didn't fit. I thought if I wasn't so against the concept of post-credit scenes, it should have been a post-credit scene. But like, it didn't need to be there. What did you guys think? Did that work for you?
I'll start. It did not work for me, but then the deleted scene came out, and that changed everything for me. I'm actually kind of sad they took that scene out of the film, because that scene that was deleted establishes the Joker,
Right.
and you understand who he is, what he's doing, what he's about. And having that scene in the film makes the scene where they meet work.
Okay. Chris?
As the scene itself, I didn't mind. It was very brief. The one that's actually in the film, because it's very brief, and again, it's artistically done with a lot of use of shadows and high key lighting in the Riddler's cell. But it did feel similar to maybe having a big action climax. That one felt a bit like a studio note, where like the Joker is without a doubt not just Batman's biggest villain, but maybe up there with Darth Vader as one of the most recognizable villains ever.
Oh, easy. Easy.
And so that one, it did feel like a studio note. And it really did kind of feel like a post-credit scene that was added into the movie. Again, I didn't hate it, because it didn't drag on. It was a little bit more they lingered on it more than, let's say, Batman seeing in Batman Begins at the very end, where he just sees the Joker card. That's like a little bit of a tease that just happens for a second. So I didn't dislike it. But if it was cut, I wouldn't miss it. I don't think it's necessary. It really just felt like Warner Brothers being like, we need to let people know that the Joker is going to eventually be in this series.
Right.
I kind of hope it's not where he's like a prominent villain, though. I liked, if we're talking, let's throw the deleted scene in there. That deleted scene, I like him in a supporting capacity like that, actually. That was kind of fascinating. A Hannibal Lecter, let's say it. And that was very fascinating about his character. I like that kind of a Joker, because the Joker always steals the show, and he's always the tension. He's the big guy, and I understand that, but he's fascinating as a supporting character like that, as a consultant like that. Like, ooh,
yeah.
That was one issue that I had with the deleted scene, was it felt a little too Silence of the Lambs to me. Like it was just from the get-go. Even like the thing that like he puts the file folder through, which I've never been to prison. That's probably standard issue, but still they make a big point of showing it in Silence of the Lambs. And see, you're like, it was really on the nose. I did like the scene. I kind of felt like it was a really, really good Batman fan film. I don't know about Barry Keoghan's performance yet. There's definitely some Heath Ledger going on there.
I liked it. I liked his performance, especially because the only other thing I'd ever seen with him in it was The Eternals.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Which was a movie.
He's also in Dunkirk. Surely you've seen Dunkirk.
I don't know what that is.
You've never seen Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk?
Oh, I don't. No.
Okay.
I haven't explored his non-Batman films too much.
Okay.
I've seen Inception. I've seen Memento. I've seen Prestige. That's kind of it, I think. But this was, I was like, hey, this guy can do things. Nice. So I like this Joker from what I've seen, but it has to be from the deleted scene, because once again, that scene, like even afterwards, my girlfriend was like, was that Two-Face? Because he's so gross.
He's so gross.
But he's got the mutilated fingertips and
and his mouth is monstrous, literally monstrous. But
yeah. As far as that deleted scene goes, my thoughts on it are that I think it is a really, really good deleted scene. And what I mean by that is that I think that I'm really glad that it was deleted, because I think that it would have been redundant and unnecessary in the actual movie, because watching the scene again, it's cool and it's really well directed. Again, I really like the decision to not fully show the Joker, Like he's mostly in the shadows, he's mostly out of focus, and even when we see him, it's kind of like a close up of his eyes or close up of his mouth. So really well done. But listening again to the dialogue, two things. One is it doesn't actually reveal anything about the Riddler. It doesn't actually progress the story in that way. And also, I think that it would have been redundant because we already have a really terrific interrogation scene with the Riddler in the similar sort of holding cell.
Yeah.
And it's like it's framed exactly the same way.
Yeah. So I think I think it's one of those things where I'm glad that they did cut it, because I think it's like there's an adage of like kill your darlings when it comes to like editing. Like even if it's a really good scene and the performances are stellar and the dialogue's good, sometimes you have to do what's in service of the story. And I think it would have been a little bit redundant. That being said, as a deleted scene, it's killer. I mean, it's fun to watch. Like you said, Court, it's almost like a really good like Batman short film because it stands alone. You already have the context. Barry Keoghan? I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's an Irish name through and through.
Barry. We'll just call him Barry.
Bear. It's like I'm kind of with you, Court, where like there are things about his performance that I like, but then towards the end, I was a little disappointed because his voice sounds so much like Heath, where Batman's about to leave and he's like, "You want to know what I really think?"
Yeah.
And it's this drawl that Heath did that, you know, he was great about it. Jared Leto, to an extent, also kind of has this drawl. And it's kind of a bummer because it just kind of feels as though people feel like they see Heath and they want to be Heath, and they think that's what the Joker is. And it's an interpretation of the Joker, but I want someone to have a little bit more of like more of that kind of class that Mark Hamill's Joker did. I would love that, where, you know, he's almost like a demented, distinguished gentleman. That's the kind of voice that Mark Hamill has. And I'm not saying do an interpretation of Mark Hamill, but I want to see more of that voice. And this to me wasn't an impression of Heath, but it just sounded too similar to Heath.
Yeah, I'll agree. Otherwise, either put both scenes back in the film or just take it out. Just don't need it.
Again, that it felt like a studio note. I'm glad that they cut this big scene. I will say the makeup is crazy good. And I like that interpretation where typically, you know, the Joker has different origins, but I think the one that people are most familiar with is him falling into a vat of acid. And normally in the comics, it just kind of bleaches his skin. But this one actually looks like a person that fell into a vat of acid. Like it burned away his lips and shit. It's crazy.
I kind of immediately think of that this scene from fucking Fight Club. After he kisses him, put the lie on it, and it's just like all gnarled and
You know who he kind of looks like? I mean, the version of the Joker, not the voice, but visually, he looks like the way the Joker did in the sequel Arkham City. If you guys played that, where where the Joker is like, it's because it's after the first one and he's all scarred up, so he still has the makeup on, but his face is all gnarled up, and it kind of reminded me visually of that a little bit.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, Lord knows what Vengeance did to that Joker.
Oh no. Yeah.
I mean, he got him in there, so punchy.
For me, it's a cross maybe between that and there was a comic that came out. I think it came out like right around the time of The Dark Knight, and it was just called The Joker. It was by Lee Bermejo, and it was like told from the perspective of like one of Joker's newest like low-level goons who becomes like his driver or something. But that's when they went with the cut smile. You know what? Talk amongst yourselves. I want to see if I have it. Hang on.
Okay.
All right.
But no, I agree with what you were saying, Andris, in that, listen, everyone loves the Joker. I love the Joker too, but everyone also talks about the Batman's incredible rogues gallery. And he does. There are so many great characters that either one could use good reinterpretation, or two that have never been on screen before. Like, and
unfortunately, even in this film, every single character that we've seen has been on the screen at some point. There's nobody new.
Yeah, there's yeah.
And there is so much you could do with his. I mean, here we, for example, what they did with the Riddler in this interpretation. Think of what they could have done with any of the others.
Yeah, for sure. There's quite a few. Is it Deadshot? I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
There's a few. There's Deadshots. I mean, we've seen an interpretation of him. I would like to see a version of Hush from the comics. That would be awesome. There's a lot.
In the footage that, like the news footage that he's showing on the slide projector or whatever, there is that moment where the word hush is like scrolled across.
I caught that too. I didn't know if that was an intentional nod. That'd be dope though.
They couldn't possibly have made that as a mistake. There's no way. That's
fair. Yeah.
Okay, so I found the book. It's dark, so I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see terribly well, but
okay.
the shot here.
Yeah.
But particularly the cover, like when the camera's panning down his face, when it actually comes into focus and we see his mouth, this is like the cover of the book.
Oh, dude, I can see it for sure.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's good call. It's good read, by the way.
Yeah. No, I want to check that out.
Yeah, I think for me, like that scene, glad they shot it, glad it's not in the movie, glad it's out there for posterity because it's cool.
Yes.
I did really like, as Batman's walking out at the end, the Joker's kind of taunting him, saying like, you're terrified because like, I don't remember exactly the words, but what he's suggesting is that like, you think the Riddler's right.
Yeah.
You kind of agree with him. That I loved. That was great.
Yeah.
And who's going to have that insight into Batman more than the Joker?
Definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely. There are a few things we haven't talked about that we could talk about.
Like what?
Okay.
The Batmobile.
Yes.
We haven't talked about the Batmobile yet. What do you guys think about the Batmobile?
I dig
Chris,
it.
You got the background, man.
I dig it. I like the muscle car kind of aesthetic to it. It's one of those things where, as much as I love Nolan's trilogy, the Tumbler was cool. I mean, it was awesome, especially the first time seeing Batman Begins. But I kind of like the Batmobile not just being a tank. And so I thought this interpretation of it fit the character very well, that it despite having a freaking jet engine on the back, the rest of it seemed pretty plausible. Just like a souped up muscle car with a roll cage in it. I mean, and the scene really sold it, like the sound design when he started revving engine.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's hard even if you don't like the design, how do I say this? I challenge anyone to say that chase wasn't fucking awesome.
Oh, it was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and for me, like I've seen directors talk about this, but like when you make a Batman movie, part of the thrill is you get to be involved in the designing of a new Batmobile.
Yeah.
That's just cool. And whenever there's a new Batman movie coming out, I'm always like, what's the Batmobile going to look like? I've always preferred my Batmobiles to be a little bit more stylized. I don't need little bat emblems on every thing, but like I love the Burton car. I even like the Snyder car. I think it's cool.
That's not bad.
But so when they first released images of this, it's just a muscle car. I was like, okay, I see it from like a story perspective. I was a little bit disappointed, but I was like, okay, we'll see. And then I saw it in action in the movie, and I was like, fucking it. This is a wicked Batmobile. Yeah. And I saw an interview with Reeves, and I mean, like, they used a lot of CGI in this movie, and they did a lot with I can't remember the name of the technology, but it's what they did shooting The Mandalorian, where they're on like that stage with like all LED screens.
I didn't.
So they're seeing about. Yeah, so a lot of it was done that.
I didn't know they did that, actually. I
think it's called the volume or something. But he was saying like the car chase was pretty much entirely shot for real. Nice. Even the jump through the fire, like that was all done for real.
That is one of the things that surprised me when we were watching the credits, because we were like, post-credit scene is going to happen, obviously. How many like visual effects artists were involved? Because the CG didn't really stand out for me.
It's not obvious.
It's not obvious. So now I'm surprised and impressed that they use the same technology as Mandalorian, because that shit is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that they're doing that, because it's you can't tell, and that's beautiful.
No, I love that technology too, but it's also like I like it so much better than just like a green screen or a blue screen, and it harkens back to old school classic filmmaking, where if you
Yes.
watch a lot of old movies, they used rear projections all the time, all the time, and it kind of stands out. And this is literally the same thing, just with modern technology, just with like LED lights and LCD screens and stuff like that. It's awesome.
It's a beautiful marriage of old school filmmaking and modern technology.
Yeah, it's the same principle. Yeah,
it's not even that different from like a matte painting or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think having something, even though it's a projection, having something physical that you capture on screen, on camera, I think will always look better.
Where the lighting is interacting with the physical actors.
For sure.
That is the biggest difference between that and green screen. Yeah. I'm glad to see it's taking off as a medium or a method of filmmaking.
Yeah.
There is also, sorry, just quickly, like it also gives the performers, just not that it's not the same as like them having a conversation where the other actor isn't there, but it gives them some context. It's not just being in a green room,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It helps actors act.
Exactly. Yeah.
The only thing I wanted to mention that I did not like was the design of Wayne apartment or whatever it is.
I saw you mention this.
Yeah, I just it was so gothic. I was like, dude, is Bruce Wayne's roommate Nosferatu?
I hope so.
The ridiculous wooden table with the giant ornate W on it. I was like, what? That's the one thing I liked about the Nolan films a little better, was like he lived in an actual plausible place, whereas this dude's living in Dracula's castle.
Right.
Minor gripe though.
Yeah. I kind of like the Dracula's castle, but I will say that one thing I don't think this movie did well was really establish location of his apartment. Like, because in Nolan's films, whether it's the Wayne Manor or it's his penthouse, or there's like an establishing shot. We kind of see people entering. We have an understanding of the geography of it. This movie really kind of like cut to him being in it. And then later on in the movie, we see that he's driving towards a tower. And I'm like, oh, I guess he's not in Wayne Manor. He's in a penthouse. Like I don't know if you guys felt that too, but I was like, what is the geography of, like, where does he live?
Like, I understand from a storytelling perspective, they were just establishing this man is Batman. He lives in his Bat cave, taking his ridiculously awesome contacts out to rewatch footage of him kicking people.
Oh, that's cool. I like that a lot too.
Yeah, but
that was cool.
But from like a filmmaking perspective, it was like, where is Alfred right now?
Yeah, give me an establishing shot.
And that's another reason I was like, what is with this gothic castle? Because skyscrapers don't have like architecture like that ever. Unless you built a skyscraper in Romania in like the 1400s. Newsflash, that didn't happen. What is up with this set design?
It's over the top, but I liked it.
Well, and I wonder if, like, because the whole establishing shot, I don't know if I noticed it in this movie, but I definitely noticed it in Batman versus Superman. It was a big problem in Batman versus Superman, where you just like, it would cut to another scene and you're in the middle of the scene and just like, where are we now? Yeah, and I wonder because that movie was so long, this movie is so long, maybe it was just an issue of like establishing shot, but like, it's something we can cut. I don't know.
Like, Matt, we understand you're not against movies that are more than 3 hours long, but a 10-minute establishing shot, come on, bro.
Right.
Cut that out.
Yeah.
But yeah,
no, good point.
All right, well, do you guys have anything else, or should we wrap this up?
I think I covered a lot. Yeah,
I think we've gotten everything that needed to be covered.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we would all recommend this movie. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
It's been out for so long now. If you have any interest in seeing it, you've probably seen it. Mm-hmm. I do believe it's coming out on HBO Max on, I think, April 15th. So not a long wait to see it at home, which is cool because you can go pee, which is fun.
Main thing. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to watching it again myself. So
and going pee.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna do that as soon as we wrap up. Too.
I'm looking forward to it.
Not all of us are unprofessional enough to take a break mid
Dude,
podcast.
I got a big old coffee, and my body was like, "You got to do it now."
Hey man, I ran off to get this, so whatever.
There you go.
Okay, so that is our review of the Batman. Of course, we want to thank you for watching. We want to encourage you to jump into the comments and tell us what you thought of the movie. What did you think of Barry Keoghan as the Joker? Do you think the scene should have been in the movie? Are you looking forward to a sequel? Did you like Robert Pattinson? Whatever your thoughts about the Batman, hit the comments section. Let us know what you thought. Andris, you want to say something?
Who would you like to see in the next Batman film?
Okay, yeah. Is there a particular villain you want to see? Do you have like a cool fan casting? Those are always fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, jump down below. Let us know there. Of course, we want to encourage you to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to my channel here for more content. Before we let you guys go, Chris, where can people follow your adventures online?
I'm on Instagram. My handle is Art of Light and Shadow. Just talk about all sorts of fun film stuff there. So check it out.
Andris?
If you do a YouTube search for Cheap Thrills Unspeakable Terror, you will find my videos. I do weekly reviews of, I messed it up, low budget sci-fi and horror from the dawn of cinema to the modern era.
And of course, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Courtshake. You're already on my channel, but again, if you haven't subscribed, I would love for you to do so. That would be fantastic. Yeah, we want to thank you guys for watching. As always, we want to say that we hope wherever you are, you're being safe, you're staying healthy. Hopefully we're getting through this thing. And one final thing, if you guys will permit me, rest in peace, Taylor Hawkins.
Taylor Hawkins.
That one came out of nowhere, and I'm
out of nowhere.
Fucking bummed out about it. So
yeah, man.
Rest in peace, Taylor. Thank you guys for watching. We'll do another show at some point. We're all busy guys, but we'll see you guys at some point. Thank you very much for watching, and take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye.